Okay, in this lesson we are covering simple claims. Now, a simple claim, what is that? A simple claim is it's the basic element that we're dealing with in here. And if you'll recall from chapters 1 and 2, we talked about the basics of arguments, and we talked about what we called claims or statements or propositions. These were all fundamentally, to our mind, the same thing. And a claim or a statement or a proposition is a fundamental unit of thought that has a truth value. That is, it's a basic unit of thought that is either true or false. That's what a claim, statement, or proposition is. Now, what we're looking at here in this section, what we're calling it is propositional logic. So it's the logic of propositions or claims or statements or things that have a truth value and how they relate to each other. So the basic element here being the proposition is a basic unit of thought that is either true or false. Now, our concern with propositions is not whether they are actually true or false. Our concern here is to see whether those propositions relate in the appropriate way such that the premises relate in a way that would guarantee the conclusion, that they're related to the conclusion in an appropriate way, that they would guarantee it. So we're more interested in this section in how propositions logically connect. That is, how basic units of thought connect logically. Okay? When I say logically, here's what I mean. Since a basic proposition or claim or statement, as the basic element of what we're dealing with, is a unit of thought that's either true or false, we want to know, when I talk about propositions connecting logically, what we're asking about is what the relationship is between the truth of one proposition and the truth of another proposition. If I know that two propositions are true and they relate to each other in a certain way, does that imply that some other proposition is true? Or that complex proposition made up of more simple propositions is true. Okay, these are the kinds of things that we will be after. But that is our concern, is how they logically connect. But to get there, our basic unit of thought is just a proposition. So let's look at a couple propositions. Okay, every man is mortal. Now, this is a simple propositional claim. It's a basic unit of thought that has a truth value. This is a claim. Every man is mortal is a claim. It's the kind of thing that is either true or false, and it is true. There's another claim below that. Doctors are selfish people. This is a claim. This is something that's either true or false. Either it is, well, true or false. This basic unit of thought has a truth value. The same with this claim, this class is difficult. And the other claim below it, mint chip ice cream is the best. Now notice, this class is difficult and mint chip ice cream is the best are both subjective claims. They're both subjective claims. That's really important. To say that they're subjective doesn't mean that they do not have a truth value. They certainly do have a truth value. All that it means is that the truth value is determined by the preference of the person speaking that claim or considering that claim. So this class is difficult if uttered by you might be false, but if uttered by someone else might be true, or vice versa. Likewise, mint chip ice cream is the best might be true if uttered by me, in fact would be true if uttered by me, but might be false if uttered by you. Okay, so it's a subjective claim. It still has a truth value. It's just that what makes it true are our individual thoughts or preferences. Well, these sorts of claims or propositions are still part of and can be part of deductive arguments because they have a truth value. So the first step then for us is going to be to remove the propositional content. We want to get rid of the content of the proposition, and instead we want to put in something like a placeholder for it. Okay? So how do we do that? Well, for every basic unit of thought, every basic unit that's either true or false, we're just going to select a single capital letter to substitute in for that content. So for example, every man is mortal. Well, let's say that that claim is a part of an argument that I'm considering. And since I just want to focus on the form and not the content, I want to remove the content from that claim, every man is mortal, and replace it with a placeholder, with a content holder, really. Okay? So what might I use here? Well, for every individual claim or proposition, we're going to use a single capital letter, whatever you want, A through Z, to represent that claim. So for this one, we might use M. Every man is mortal. Well, we'll just make that M, okay? That claim is just M. Now, I understand, right now, you don't have a context for how we're using this. I understand. Just bear with me right now. When we want to remove the propositional content from a single, simple proposition, we are going to substitute the content of that proposition for a content holder, which will be a single capital letter. In this case, I went with M. It kind of reminds me of the content where we're talking about men and being mortal. So I've got an M there to hold that place. What about the next claim? Doctors are selfish people. Okay? Well, we can pick any capital letter to pick out that content. That's the kind of thing that's either true or false. So we could go with D for doctors, or we could go for S for selfish. You can use either one. It doesn't matter. You can't use both. You can't, in one argument, have D stand for doctors are selfish and have S stand for doctors are selfish. You have to pick one or the other. You can't use both. So for every single claim that's either true or false, you want one single capital letter to symbolize that every time that claim occurs in an argument. Very often in an argument, the same claim will occur more than once. So we want to make sure that our usage, our content placeholder is consistent. So for the second one here, choose either D or S, but don't do both. And whatever you use, you must use it consistently through that argument. What about the next one? This class is difficult. Here again, you have more than one option. You can use C or you can use D, whatever. You could use X if you wanted to. You could use A, you could use Q, you could use R. It doesn't matter. Just make sure that you only choose one letter to represent that content. And here's what's important. If the claim above it, doctors are selfish people, occurs in an argument with the claim this class is difficult, and you elected to have D in the one above stand for doctors are selfish people, then you cannot use D a second time for this class is difficult. You would have to go with a new or different capital letter like C. You do not want the same capital letter to represent two propositional contents. Okay? So for every propositional content, a new and unique capital letter. Every time that content is available, you use that capital letter. And then we can do mint ice cream is the best. We might go with B for that. Since we used M for every man is mortal above, we might go with B for that. Okay? That's how to handle single simple propositions. So if I gave you a form that said, with a bunch of single simple propositions, you just choose a capital letter to represent every single one of those propositions. That's it. This is not rocket science. It's very, very simple. Now we're going to build on this, so we're not quite done yet, but this is fundamentally what we're doing. This is part of that first step that we're working on. So, all right, there we go.